Like, is this? Yeah.
Is this thing on?
So please, everybody, take seat. Who is not?
Okay.
You want to start?
So I hope everyone had a good break and an inspiring break with the performances that we had, which were incredible. So next in the program, we initially had something else planned, but I wanted to, Scott Keller would deliver a speech. Scott Keller is a leading candidate of the European Greens and unfortunately had to cancel for personal reasons. But as a former FYAG spokesperson, really supports this movement and really wanted to be here. So instead, Scott has sent us a video message, which we will view right now.
Hello everyone, I'm so sorry for not being together with you in Madrid. It's really a disaster not to be there with so many of you cool people and young candidates, but I know you're going to have a fantastic conference, you're going to have a fantastic discussion in Madrid, and I'm really happy that there's so many young candidates from all over Europe making sure that we have young people at the forefront, because this is very much needed. We have all these old people who are currently ruining our common continent, the status quo parties as well as the old nationalists, trying to re-establish borders, trying to divide the countries that we're living in, the countries that are the foundation of the European Union, who are currently not at all caring about the climate crisis that is at hand, who are saying, nah, social Europe, who needs that? We can just focus on freedom of capital and the common market, and let's make sure we have rules about how much money a country can spend, but not about social Europe. But we need to get there. We need to make sure that Europe is really fighting the climate crisis, because we only have that one common planet and we need it for our common future. And we need to make sure that Europe also grows together socially, that we have social minimum standards all over Europe, and we cannot accept a hugely high youth unemployment as it is, for example, in Greece, but also in Spain where you currently are, or in Italy. And we also need to make sure that every European, everyone who lives in the European Union has democratic rights, can be sure that the government of the country where they're living is respecting rule of law, independence of judiciary, where there is a free press, so everyone can be informed, and that governments are being controlled. And all of that is being put under risk right now by many governments, by parties from the right and from the far right, and we need to make sure that Europe can stand up for the rights of the European citizens, and not just them, but of everyone who lives in Europe. Because right now we see many problems arising, especially also at our borders, many people who are dying in the Mediterranean, and it's really incredible to see that today, 2019, in the middle basically of the European Union, we are not guaranteeing search and rescue at sea. People are dying. The Mediterranean is one of the deadliest refugee routes that we see right now, and governments are refusing to let people help. You know, there's people who want to help, NGOs who want to help, who bring their own ships, but they're not allowed to go out. That is a disaster for the whole of the European Union. So we need to have a new start for the European idea, for the idea of solidarity, of building our common future together. And that is something that we have to do as Greens, and especially as you as young Greens and me as not totally old Green yet, because it's our energy and our power that is needed. We cannot leave it to the old guys to decide our future. We need to do it ourselves. So let's be brave, and let's be green, and let's make Europe green. All the best. I wish you good luck for the conference in Madrid, and have a great party as well. See you soon.
Don't look. Okay.
So shall we try to distract people? What's over there?
Do you want to switch again the light? Thank you. Okay, okay. So, well, we have had before the opportunity to let them introduce themselves and so, but they are the main reason why all of you are here, so our young green candidates. So now we want to give them the opportunity to speak a little bit more and to know what they're thinking about how we can answer this call from the civil society that we have been talking about. Our first, well, are you ready for that? I want the room to be... That's better, okay. So our first candidate speaker comes from Germany. He's the former spokesperson of EYG. He's an activist for climate and global justice and the 14th in the list of Germany to the European elections. He's Micha Blos. So please.
Yeah, well, we are the main reason, not only as young candidates, but we are as the young green European movement. We are the main reason why we're here, and we are the reason why Europe is changing in the future. So I was asked to speak about global justice, and currently I'm more focusing on climate justice and climate issues, because I believe that this is one of the biggest things that we actually need to tackle to achieve something bigger, to achieve global justice. And in the end, the Greens are, in the essence, some globalists. We are internationalists. As much as we know that climate change is not stopping at the border, we also know that the way our production system works, this is also not stopping at the border. The way we consume and the way we produce here is causing the exploitation and the poverty in the rest of the world. And this is also something what needs to stop. As much as the climate crisis needs to stop, we need to stop exploitation globally. It's clear, the big companies, they make their profits, and the real prices is paid by the climate and it's paid by the people. And we see this, unfortunately, in Europe quite a lot right now. If I look to what happened only last week, we had a wonderful thing. There was a ship at rescue with 212 people on it, and there was a fast response of European countries to help them to rescue them all from the Norwegian coast. It was a liner of pensioners going up the Norwegian coast. So we are able to rescue people. But at the same time last week, what happened is that the European Union decided to stop the rescue mission in the Mediterranean Sea, where thousands of people die. In the last 10 years, 12,000 people found their death in the Mediterranean Sea. This is the biggest shame of Europe, and this needs to stop.
Woo!
And what people are saying is, oh yeah, we need to stop them, but then on the other hand, we need to end reasons why they migrate. And yes, of course, we can all agree to this. We need to end the reason why they have to flee and why they have to migrate. But what we are doing is something completely different. The Sahara goes every year, the Sahara every year, 15 kilometers to the south. Like, it eats up Nigeria, it eats up Burkina Faso, the people have to flee. We have 25 million climate refugees right now, and it's going to be much more. And what is Europe doing? Europe is still subsidizing its fossil industry, subsidizing coal, subsidizing CO2 production. If we want to end the reasons for migration, we need to get this energy transition in Europe going, and we need to stop funding fossil fuels. And what other things is the European Union right now doing? We are giving a lot of money in this migration compacts. And where does this money go? This money goes most of the time to dictators, to their police state, to fund them new weapons, to fund them new surveillance technology, to secure the border so that the borders are not only secured on the European side, but also inside Africa. They are supporting dictatorships instead of supporting democracy, and also this is not stopping the reasons for migration. It actually creates a reason for migration, and also this we have to stop. We need to support democracy. And on the other hand, where is Europe as such going? We are currently cutting our programs for civil conflict prevention, and we are developing with billions of money a new program to develop new military technology in Europe. This is the complete wrong direction in the sense of where we want to go in terms of foreign policy. Europe is a peace power. This is in our founding. This is what made Europe great. We are built on the idea of peace. And currently, because they say, oh, the US, we cannot rely on them anymore, oh, Russia's there, many Europe, like the conservatives and the social democrats, they are trying to create this new imperialist military European power, and this is the wrong way, and this is also where we Young Greens will say, never with us. Europe has to stay a peace project. How many minutes do I have? Let's see. Just one more thing. It's already over. I had so many more other things to say. I think what is a great experience from Germany, but also from different other places, is that the Greens are currently very, very high in the public opinion polls. Everybody likes us. And what is the reason? 5 years ago, when there was this, what they call migration crisis, all of the different parties, they were then saying, oh yes, this is a big crisis, we need to really do something, we need to make bigger border controls, we need to let them drown in the Mediterranean so that the others will see that they cannot cross the Mediterranean. And it was only the Greens who stand up and said, whatever you say, whatever the populists say, whatever the racists say, we will not let our human rights down. We will stand to our human rights. We will stand to our asylum rights. We have values, and it doesn't matter if the wind is blowing into our face. We stand to our values. This is the way this is why we are now appreciated, and this is the way we need to go forward. If we have values, people support us, people want to support values, and this is what we are going to show in the next 2 months. We are the party of the human rights, of the values, and that's why people will vote for us. Thank you very much.
To talk a little bit slower. To talk a little bit slower.
Thank you for that. So speaking of having so many more things to say, the good news is that these candidates are available after this is over. You can talk to them over drinks. There'll be a nice DJ. So whatever you want to ask and whatever you want to share, maybe some dance moves, that's all possible after all of this. So the next person that I want to invite onto the stage is an avid feminist, is an activist, is a local, and is also co-spokesperson of Red Equohoven. And I would like to invite Elena Montero.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you, because I always have the same feeling after being with FYG. Like, I might be low. I came right from work here, so I was pretty exhausted, but I feel very energized, like every time I have a little chance to spend time with you. So my turn is to talk to you about youth racing and youth rights, but like, really, who am I to speak about youth racing when you have been inspiring and joining like thousands and thousands of youngsters in whole Europe to race against climate change. So, I mean, we gathered together and we've been able to raise people all over Europe faster than sea levels, like easy joke. And so I just want to talk about our rights. Earlier, when Katri was talking about the expectations we had when we were growing up, it really made me remember about 2008. Like at that time, I was 15, I was in high school, and I thought that I was living in a super progressive country. The socialists were ruling after some dark years here in Spain. Like the economy was bursting, there was no inequalities in the media. But then we were hit by the economic crisis, right? And just now, when I'm about to turn 26, we're still seeing how it affected us. I remember thinking that it was going to be over when we were going to be adults at the time, right? And just to see how unemployment has changed society, how rage has been growing, led by the far right, how corruption has been like, I don't know, globalized, at least here in Spain for us, it's like a common ingredient in our politicians. But like, I don't want to talk about this to let you down or bring this bravery down or anything. I just want us to keep in mind like the different places that compose Europe and how the crisis affected us differently. Because right now, we're here in Madrid, and I'm sure you have noticed the difference of the buildings here around this area, outside, and the buildings in the center, or where you're staying. And we just happen to be in one of the most unequal regions here in Madrid from all Europe. 1 out of 3 kids in Spain live under the line of poverty. That's 280,000 kids and teenagers in our country that live in poverty.
I know about this.
So how are we going to make sure that youth rights, are sustained and defended in the future? If we have people thinking about eating, thinking about work, and thinking about having money to live. So this is when you become valuable, as I said before, because we have the power to talk about the ones who can right now. And I believe that we're the privileged one in some way right now. And we are the ones who have to make sure that every kid in Europe has access to free education, have access to a public social health system, to has the right to enjoy their environment, and definitely to be who they want to be and love who they want to love, disregarding of where do they come from, right? So I really want us to remember that we are the ones who have to keep racing for the climate, but not only for that, but for justice. Because as after me, my colleagues are going to talk about, without justice, we're not going to fight climate change. So we need you. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Now, coming from Hungary, we're going to have here an activist in his local Green Party that recently took an active part in the protest against the government's overtime law in Hungary. He's now also from the executive committee of the FYG and especially is interested in the workers' rights. So let's welcome to the stage Greg Sasar.
What I wanted to talk to you about today is one of the main priorities that FIG is having for this campaign, which is social Europe, because I think this is one of the most important questions that is facing Europe at the moment. So, 28 years ago, in 1999, the leaders of then Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Poland came together, and they wished for European and Euro-Atlantic integration. They said, or they promised, that in 10 years, everybody in Eastern Europe will be living like the Austrians. That we will have the living standards, the income, and the standard of living that the Austrians have, and somehow that didn't really come true. However, what did come true is that after the collapse in 2008, income inequalities and wealth inequalities especially rose the second largest in Hungary, only after Cyprus. And right now, we have 33% of children facing social exclusion and facing poverty in their lives ahead. And what is happening is that a lot of young people are moving away. More young people have moved away from Hungary in the last 10 years than after the Second World War. And if you look at other parts of Eastern Europe, we look at Lithuania, if I'm correct, half of the population have moved away in the last 30 years, which is indicating that something is not right with the system. So what can we do about this, and why do I think personally that that Europe needs a big overhaul, and that it's not supposed to stay only a peace project, but it should have a social aspect to it as well. First of all, what we see happening in France, what we see happening in Belgium is that work is changing. More and more people are not working as an employee, but as a contractor, and therefore they are having their social benefits stripped away from them, they are having their healthcare stripped away from them, they are having less and less access to what was seen as the welfare state many years ago. And I think that Europe has to be there to guarantee that those welfare state benefits remain intact, and Europe has to benefit the many and not the few. And unfortunately, I have to say this, but I think Angela Merkel is really happy with how Hungary is doing. And it's not on this, not in the aspect of human rights, and not in the aspect of course, we all know Viktor Orban's policies, but they are serving well the German car manufacturing economy. And that's what matters to them. And that is why I think that not only Orban needs to go, but the EPP and the European People's Party in general needs to leave, and the Greens have to take over to create a social And the most infuriating thing for me is that it's very open, and it's very, they're not hiding it anymore. So Axel Voss, the person who was recently responsible for the already said copyright reform, you might have heard of it, he said publicly in a press conference that yes, some publishers, some big companies threatened us that they're going to give us bad press if we do not vote the way they want us to vote. So is that really a Europe that benefits its citizens? Is it really a Europe that makes all of the citizens' voices heard? Because I do not think that is the case. So what we should fight for is a Europe that provides for all of its citizens, a Europe that hears the voice of all of its citizens, be it from the least populous country or for the most populous country, and a Europe that gives the same guarantees to all the people, and it makes sure that wealth do not get concentrated in only 10% of the population or 1% of the population, but all the people are benefiting from the drives that they are putting into the economy.
Thank you, Greg. So our next speaker is a candidate for the French Greens. He is a multifaceted activist, not just fighting for food sovereignty, but also for climate justice and within movements, so also within civil disobedience. He's fearless. He's also an intern of the European Parliament, working on common agricultural policy. I'd like to offer the stage to Antoine Tiffin.
Thank you. Well, we've talked about sustainable Europe, but often as Greens, when we talk about sustainable Europe, people oppose to us the argument that this costs money. Well, Greens, we have often found solution. We are very creative in how to find the money, we know where to find it. But actually, I'm going to talk to you about a sector in which we don't need to look for the money, because the money is right there. We are already using 1/3 of EU budget on this sector. We are spending 58 billion euro per year on this sector, and this sector, it's agriculture. Greens are fighting for an EU common agricultural policy that will ensure an ecological transition of the agricultural sector in 10 years. Such a policy should serve 3 goals. The first one should be to ensure good, high quality and toxic-free food for all Europeans. It is not acceptable that still in Europe some people are facing hunger, do not have enough food to eat, or that the poorest of us cannot afford good quality and need to go to Lidl or to only consume bad quality food. This is something that is not acceptable. But at the same time, the goal of our agricultural system should not be to feed the whole world. Farmers from other countries also have the right to feed their own people without facing the unfair competition from our highly subsidized agriculture. We also want an agricultural system that does not contribute to climate change. An agricultural system that does not contribute to the loss of the biodiversity, that does not contribute to the pollution of air, water and soil, but instead that will enhance biodiversity, that will contribute to capturing carbon in the soil. And actually there are ways to do it. Maintaining permanent pasture, reducing meat production, banning factory farming, implementing agroecological practices that will help reducing the use of fertilizers and pesticides, relocalize food production and developing short supply chains so that endless flows of trucks and boats that are going around the world to transport our food are not needed anymore. And third objective is that we need to ensure a decent income for all farmers. And an income that will not come only from subsidies from the European Union, but a decent income that will come from remunerative prices for the fruit production that they are making. Farmers are not the enemies of Greens, and Greens are not the enemies of farmers. What I just said is actually shared by many farmers. Because farmers are the first victim of this system. They are the victims of the cancer and all the diseases caused by pesticides. They are the one in debt because they need to buy products, because the price of the agricultural products is reducing while the input is increasing. They are the one working 10 hours a day, but still living under the poverty line. In France, last year, 300 farmers committed suicide. That's nearly 1 farmer per day. How is it possible? How can we accept that those that are producing the food that we are eating are living in such bad conditions? We need to change that system. And we need to change that system, and we need to work all together. And actually, rural areas are now in a really bad state. They are dying because of the absence of a vision for these areas. In France, the rural areas have recently risen up in the Gilets jaunes movement. And actually, the Greens are probably the only party that have a vision, an alternative vision for rural areas that is not only about losing population and producing food without caring about the planet and the future. So we have a vision, we have a plan. Now we just need to get into power to actually put it into practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antoine. Well, now you know that the European Greens and the FYG is not just an ecologist movement, it's also a feminist movement. Sorry, organization. And now to share with us her story from the south of France, we have the candidate Mathilde Tessier. So please, give her a hand.
Three years ago, I found out I was pregnant. And for many reasons, I wasn't ready to be a mom, so I chose to abort. This wasn't an easy choice, but I did it. And I remember that in the room of the organization that answered my questions about abortion, there were this young woman. She was like 15 or 16, and she was also pregnant, and she wanted to abort in secret because she didn't want her parents to know she was pregnant. And actually, in France, she could do this, and like for free. And so it was 4 months for me really difficult to speak about it, and I'm still getting a bit emotional about speaking about this experience. But I found out that I was lucky. Obviously, I would have preferred not to because it's kind of a painful experience, but I was lucky because I hadn't to suffer any medical violences, any judgments. And actually, when I started speaking about it, most people were like, okay, this is normal actually. It happens like to most women, like I think a third of women abort once in their life. So it's not like an accident sometimes. It's quite a lot, and still it's that not frequent to speak about this. So I think it's really important to free the speeches about abortion. One other thing is that I had the chance to be in a country where it is legal to abort. And in so many countries, especially including in the European Union, it's not legal to abort. And women and non-male people are fighting for their rights in so many countries, and even in some countries it's still not possible to speak about this topic. And I think the other thing is that even in the countries where it is legal to abort, it's threatened because so many people are judging us like you're killing babies or so on, and which is not the case, obviously. And this is so important that we keep fighting for this right, and this is why in the Green Party and in the Green Manifesto for the next European election, we want to put this right into the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. Well, thank you.
thank you for sharing your story and going back to what's right here, to be brave. Yeah, thank you for that. So I'd like to welcome up to the stage someone who's been campaigning for LGBTQI rights for the last 8 years, has also worked on a referendum to end hunting of birds during the springtime, and is also shaking and moving and waking Malta up by a storm.
Hi everyone, my name is Mina, for those who haven't caught on yet. So as Kelsey mentioned, I have been working on LGBTI activism for 8 years, so this is what I will talk about today. What does it mean to be a lesbian, a gay person, trans, bisexual, queer, or intersex in Europe today? Of course, there's not one answer that will capture that. There's many different realities for LGBTIQ people in Europe, as there are LGBTIQ people in Europe. But there are some things that we have in common, and there are some shared struggles. And one of the first things is that to be queer, to be yourself, to show who you are, to not be afraid to walk out in the street holding hands with your lover, to love who you want to love, to go against the norms of what certain genders need to look like. To do this, you need bravery. And so to be queer in Europe means also to be brave. And of course, there are many different realities in different countries. In my case, I'm a white trans person from Malta. My situation is rather comfortable. Malta has some of the best LGBTI laws in the world, definitely in the European Union, but it's not the same. A trans person in the Czech Republic, for example, has to choose between having a document that reflects who they actually are or being sterilized. Families, queer families, two women, for example, who are married in one country might travel to another European Union country for work and realize that their marriage is not recognized there. That the freedom of Europe, that the freedom of movement that Europe promises is not a freedom of movement for everyone. A child might be born somewhere in Europe, and the doctor might decide, on seeing that they do not fit the norms of what it means to be a boy or a girl, that this child needs to have surgery done on their genitals because there are standards in society and they don't fit in. And that's a reality for intersex people in Europe. So of course, it can be quite a challenge to be an LGBTI person in Europe. So how do we make Europe more welcome and more inclusive for queer people? And what is that vision that we want, right? And well, first of all, we need to realize that the human rights that we are fighting for as LGBTQI people are human rights for everyone. When we are fighting for legal gender recognition for trans people that is accessible to all and that does not require medical interventions, we are fighting for bodily autonomy and for our sexual health and reproductive rights. When we are fighting for the rights of intersex people and intersex children to be who they are without medical interventions, we are fighting for the bodies of everyone. We are, as LGBTI people, as queer people, we are many different people. We can be disabled, we can be black and people of color, we can be women, we can be men, we can be trans people, we can be neither of these genders. And we fight for our common struggles. So Europe that is welcoming and inclusive of LGBTQI people is a Europe that is feminist. And a Europe that is welcoming of LGBTQI people is a Europe that is anti-racist. And a Europe that is welcoming of LGBTQI people is a Europe that opens its doors and welcomes refugees. Because, well, I have it quite easy to travel. An LGBTQI asylum seeker coming to Europe, if they make it here, is subjected to a lot of stereotypes of what it means to be LGBTQI. And if they don't fit in these boxes, they are sent back. So, what I want to say is quite simple. The solution is that we need to have the people in power, our politicians and the green politicians who will listen to LGBTQI people and who will fight for our rights, because only this way we will change things. So we need to be queer, Green Europe. And we will continue to be brave, queer Europe. Thank you.
Thanks, Mina. Okay, our last speaker comes from the Netherlands. She's a climate activist and now is very focused in ensuring that Europe makes a fair and just transition. I think that if the FYIG defines itself as the most kicking ass organization, I met her in action in the Climate Summit in Katowice, and I can tell you that she is really representing that value. So, welcome to the stage, Kim van Sparrentak.
Hey everyone! I haven't said anything yet. Hold the applause. I want to tell a little story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl in Sweden, and she went to school, and she learned a lot of different things, like all of us have. And she learned about climate change. And she thought, wow, this is scary. This is something we need to change. She looked outside, and business as usual. No one was panicking. No one was doing anything. And she found a little way on her own to protest against this. She made a sign and said, I'm going to strike for the climate and I'm going to sit in front of the parliament. And I think that's... And I think that's very brave. And then there was a little girl in the Netherlands, 10 years old, who said, what she's doing, I agree with her. I'm going to sit in front of my city hall every week. And then there was a 17-year-old girl in Belgium who said, I'm going to just see how many people I can get on the streets, because I'm really angry, because I walked in a climate march with 70,000 people right in front of the climate summit, just before that. And the day after, the environmental minister went to the climate summit and took a selfie before entering her private jet, saying, oh, I'll take all these voices with me. And in the end, she blocked a lot of the things, this environmental minister, and her country didn't even join the High Ambition Coalition. And she said, I'm going to see how many school kids I can get to strike. So there were a few hundred, few thousands, and at some point there were even 35,000 kids striking for the climate in Brussels. And in the Netherlands, the same happened. There was a failing climate agreement, and 15,000 kids were on the streets. And I think it's a very clear message that if our leaders don't act, we will rise up for sure. And on the 15th of March, there were more than 1.5 million kids everywhere in the world striking for the climate. And not only the youth is rising, I mean, you have groups everywhere now. Evelyn already mentioned the grandparents for the climate. We have scientists for the climate. We have teachers for the climate. Everything for the climate, I love it. And in Amsterdam, there were 40,000 people marching in the pouring rain. It was so cold. And everyone was there. And in Brussels, they've already had 70,000 people twice. I mean, this is amazing. And the Greens are the ones that are representing these people in the parliament. And we are growing, and that is awesome. And, you know, these people are not only rising for climate action now. I mean, it is clear we have to start now radically changing our societies. The IPCC has been clear. In a compromise, we have to remember, in a compromise they said we have 11 years left. That's a compromise. 11 years. We have to start acting now. We don't have time to talk about whether we think climate change is real. We don't have time to discuss whether we like Europe or not. We have to act now for the climate. But the people don't only want climate action now, because me and I guess many of you have been demanding something else for the last 10 years, because what do we want? Climate justice! And when do we want it? Now! Right, climate justice, that's what we want. But what does that mean? What does that really mean? So I want to give 2 examples of what a climate just Europe can look like. It will mean, for example, that we change the way our mobility. We will use more public transport and less fossil-fueled cars, give less subsidies to those people that are creating Dieselgate and stuff. And we'll make sure that people get happier, healthier, and that we have clean air to breathe. Well, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go for this. And it will especially help benefit the people in deprived communities that are living next to highways. And then we can have a more democratic energy system. You know, Shell and etc. They're super afraid. They are like spending hundreds of billions just to lobby against climate action. And, you know, we can have actually a democratic energy system, and they see it's happening. They see that there are more and more energy communities starting everywhere, and that the people can actually keep the money that has been flowing to these big corporations that have only been doing super nasty stuff, actually stay in their communities, and that they can actually be strong, healthy, prosperous communities themselves. There's only one thing that is blocking us from getting to this better climate just Europe, and that is political will. Because we can create the frameworks to make sure that this change will happen soon and just. But we just need politicians that are not listening to the status quo. We need politicians that are brave and that want to green Europe.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. Was that Be Brave, Green Europe?
I think, Be Brave, Green Europe!
Okay, I think I heard it pretty well. So another way to be brave, and if you want to be brave with these candidates, take out your phone.
Like really?
Like actually take out your phone. Well, one way you can organize is also online, and also by joining the Green Team. So what is the Green Team? The Green Team is a platform that we have set up For the campaign, it's a Telegram chat group. Telegram is an app kind of like WhatsApp, but it's secure, it's open source, lots of activists use it. And that's the way that we're going to be organizing. So if you join the Green Team using this link, you'll get lots of inspiring news, you'll get updates from new young candidates, and you'll also get different ways to engage, so by small actions, and sometimes small online actions, like just sharing something, and also being able to exchange with each other. So join it now if you have your phone out. Yeah, and if you have any questions at all about the Green Team, Niels
the guy.
is your go-to person.
Cool. Well, I'm afraid that this is coming to an end. But just this event, because we have a long night ahead. Okay. And now, then, for the last part and the closer speech, let's welcome again our two co-spokespersons.
You're supposed to join on the stage.
Thank you, thank you. Do we share this one, please? Okay.
Yeah, it feels really, really hard to follow after all these absolutely amazing speeches. What an amazing, amazing afternoon. Thank you everyone for your contributions, your questions, your comments, your energy. We are slowly but surely approaching the end of this event, and this is also a very good moment to say thank you to all of those without whom this event would not have been possible. So we want to thank all the speakers, all the brave young candidates, all the performers, and especially we want to say thank you to Kelsey and Miguel for the great moderation tonight. Now Antoine is telling me you should thank the interpreters. Of course, the interpreters were on my list. And not only the interpreters, we also want to thank our local host organization, Rede Kochoven. Big thank you goes also to the European Green Party, who co-organized this event with us. And the really biggest thank you goes to all the absolutely committed and wonderful people working in FYG office and FYG executive committee, and especially to Irene, who is sitting there, and Kelsey, who is there. And Kelsey, they have both put extremely a lot of energy. Good. All right. So now just a few closing words before we all move to the party. As Young Greens, we have always said that we like dancing, yes. We're getting there, but we have always also said that we never want to become the politician-like politicians who preach to young people from a top-down position of privilege. As today has shown, we are activists and we run for positions of political responsibility not because we enjoy the prospects of having power. We do this because we believe that politics and institutions is an important tool for changing the society. But for us, being in the parliaments is as important as occupying the coal pits. It's the political change that we're looking for in the institutions, not the seats we can sit on. But we also know that no matter whether we are in the parliaments, supporting refugees in the Mediterranean, or blocking infrastructure, we cannot achieve the change we dream of alone. Today, we talked about our dreams and hopes and aspirations for a different Europe. To achieve them, we will need all of you.
We need all of you, and it doesn't matter if you're coming from a European Union member country or outside of it. It doesn't matter if you're a person running or candidating, or you're part of a political movement and you don't have anything to do with the party politics. If you believe in Europe which put people before profits, a Europe which takes serious action against the climate change, a Europe where everybody is equal and celebrated as who they are, no matter their gender, occupation or skin color, then we are standing side by side and we are fighting the same fight. And as Susa said, we need all of you. And there are different kind of fights that we can all take on. We need all of you to join our online platform. We need you when we are having political gatherings on a Saturday afternoon and you could be doing something completely else. And we will need the brave activists on the streets who keep questioning the current state of society, who will keep resisting any kind of forms of oppression, and who will keep demanding a better Europe for themselves and for the generations to come. And we need brave young people who will carry this fight also inside the institutions, and that's why I want to invite once more all the young candidates to the stage with us.
So, as we have heard today, what we fight for is a fundamentally different form of living and being together, and a sweeping change of organizing our lives and societies. We are fighting for a future we don't need to be anxious about, but can look forward to. And we are fighting for it together. And if we win, then young people in Europe will have a stable income, fair jobs, and secured access to education and housing. If we win, women and trans people will not need to be afraid of harassment, domestic violence, restrictive abortion laws, or walking on the streets at night. If we win, nobody will need to die in the Mediterranean. And if we win, we will start shutting down the dirty, dirty fossil industry, not in 2040, not in 2030, but right now. Let's be brave, let's green Europe this spring. You have one last task before we go to the party, and that is the group picture. And we will take it. Jan will give instructions? Take it over there. Perfect. We take it in the other room. So please, if you want to be in the group picture, go to the other room now.
Justice, cha cha cha, and we are fighting for climate justice. Should we give this back already? In a minute. In a minute. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh. Okay. Hello. Hello. Which number did you have? That's mine. Oops, sorry. Do not put like taking away from each other. Because otherwise you cannot put them like this. I take? Yes, thank you. Sorry. 7. Yeah.